This is a movement analysis of 12th grade PE student Rachel Johnson. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So last week we talked about different movements that are required for all of the different types of sports that we've been learning in class, correct?
Right.
Okay, good. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a series of videos, and you and I are going to just talk about the videos throughout the filming of it, okay?
Okay.
All right, good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to pull up some videos on YouTube that you can watch. So can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. Now let me know if you can see YouTube pulled up right now.
Yes.
All right, good. So our first video is a basketball player named Kevin Durant, and what he's going to be doing is just shooting basketball from different angles. And so what we're going to do is just talk about different steps and techniques used in each of his shots. All right?
Okay.
All right, good. Here we go. So you're just going to kind of lead the discussion and talk about different parts that you see are important in the making of his shots.
Okay. So right now I can see his right arm pretty well. So he starts out at a right angle. His elbow's in line with his shoulder. And then he's extending his arm and using that right wrist to direct the ball to give it an arc to go towards the goal. And from this angle, I can tell that he's jumping.
Good.
But his legs are not really spreading out. They're just keeping in line with his body. He's not really going crazy with jumps. He's just jumping up just a little bit.
Very good.
And then from this angle, I can see his left arm. And he's starting out with that one in a right angle as well. And just using that hand to stabilize the ball and to just keep it from going off to one side or the other.
Very good. Just one quick important thing that I wanted to remind you of is that when he's shooting, like you said, he's using his right arm to push the ball upward and to using his wrist to curl the ball into an arc, which is what'll get the ball into the basket better. And you also notice that his right arm, especially from this angle, you notice that his right arm is very close to the center of his body as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the side, either to the right side or to the left side. And so this allows for better accuracy and for just a overall better shot. And so you saw right there that he had actually made 14 of those shots, which is actually a pretty extraordinary number. So, like I was saying, you see how right here, how his arm is right here in the middle of his body, shooting upward instead of out to the side or, really awkwardly over here. So, that was a good analysis of our first one. And now we're going to move on to our next sport, which is going to be women's volleyball. And this
Okay.
one is actually going to be a little bit more complex because we've got several different techniques and several different hits to analyze, okay?
Okay.
So, real quick, let's just talk about four main ball strikes that we've talked about in class. Do you think you can name what those are?
Yes. The play will start with a serve. And
Good.
there's lots of different ways to serve it: jump serve, underhand, overhand. It looks like this is a pretty older group. I don't know if it's a college or a high school, but they'll probably be doing all overhand serves. And then when the ball goes over the net, then the other team's goal is to do a bump or a dig to set the ball and then to spike the ball.
Okay.
So the people who are playing on offense want to do those three moves, and the people who are on defense, the back row wants to be ready to dig the ball if it's spiked over the net towards the back row, and the front row wants to be ready to block.
Very good. All right. So, this one is just going to be a slow motion analysis of each one, okay? So, you ready?
Okay.
All right, here we go. So, here's our first one. And you can go ahead and kind of lead this discussion as well and tell me what you think about each shot throughout.
So that was a jump serve, and she had her hand really flat um, to direct the ball straight over the net, and it looked like she got a good amount of air for that.
Now this shot right here is going to be difficult because the ball actually goes out of view of the camera, so you're not going to get a full analysis of this spike right here. But you
You
are
can
right.
tell that she's using her upper body to give her like strength and give her power towards hitting the ball though, because you saw how like she rotated.
Good.
So she was definitely using her whole body to put some speed on the ball as she hit it, and then she had a good follow through.
Good.
And then that was a dig.
Good. And that seemed like it was kind of a recovery from a spike from the other team.
Yeah. And then the setter did a good job getting up under the ball and getting it up to where her hitter could hit it when she was at like the peak of her jump,
Good.
the highest point of her jump, which is good.
Excellent.
And it looks like they succeeded.
Now tell me about this shot right here. Do you see this? What is this hit called again?
That's a bump or a dig, and you can see how she like squatted down, her feet were firmly planted, and she lifted the ball. Instead of moving her arms, she straightened her legs to bring the ball up.
Good.
And then that was a backward set by the setter. And then I think this is the same hitter, and she hits it like directly at the peak of her jump with the ball a little bit above her head, but not completely like at the tip of her fingers. She's using her hand and her fingers.
Very good.
And it looks like she was successful again. That girl didn't hit it at the peak of her jump. She was already coming down, but she was kind of successful. Your goal is never to hit it into the blocker's hands. That one kind of worked out for her because they weren't up over the net. They were kind of back off the net, so it ended up hitting them and then going down on their side. But that very easily could have come straight back over the net, which is not what you want.
Good. Now, what did you see in that
The blockers
one?
seemed to go up at the same time. They seemed to do a good job of getting up there at the same time, but I'm not sure from that angle whether or not their hands were together like you would want them to be.
Good. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the spike. We're going to talk about the set and the spike, but tell me about the spike and where, I guess, located on your hand, you would want the ball to be struck.
With the spike, you want part of your palm to be involved and then also your fingers. Your fingers alone don't have a lot of strength. They tend to bend back if the ball is, coming at a high rate of speed. So you really want to get both in there to get the maximum amount of power, but also to be able to aim it over the blocker's hands if possible, or kind of divert it to the side, just anything to keep them from deflecting it right back on your team.
Okay, so tell me a little bit. You saw with the taller girl, I can't remember what number she was. I think she was number 16. You saw how she was able to actually spike the ball and move it, almost shoot it around or away from the blockers. Tell me how you would go about shooting a spike without actually getting in the way of the blockers.
There's numerous different ways. It kind of just depends on timing. Some people are more skilled at like deflecting their hand one way or another, kind of directing the ball. Other people take advantage of the blockers if they aren't up over the net when you are. If you're higher than them, then you can kind of shoot it over them or to the side. It's a little bit easier if they aren't completely up there at the same level you are. But then you can also just add speed, you can add spin. It just really depends on the preparation that they have and the timing between the setter and the hitter, because you want to have them hit the ball at the very peak of their jump, because that's when they're going to be most successful at getting up and over those two hitters.
Very good. All right, so that one was kind of a long one, obviously, because we had a lot to go over. But our next few slides are going to be, or videos are going to be rather short. This is Usain Bolt, one of the fastest people in the world right now, and we're going to analyze just a little bit of his run. All right, so you ready?
Okay.
All right, here we go. he's obviously the one in white, and he's going to be pretty much the focus of this video. So tell me what it is that you see right here.
His feet are hitting the track he's hitting the ball of his foot, and it seems like he's hitting it just in front of his hips, like just in front of his body. So he's not really using his feet to pull him. He's using them to like launch off of, to just push him further. And his legs look really muscular, and you can tell that he's putting in a lot of work pushing off of his feet to propel himself, but he's also using his arms to create some motion and some energy, and to just propel himself.
Good. One last thing that I wanted to show you about this video is that you were on the right track with the arms, but if you notice how his arms and his legs are actually being used on different sides at different times.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, whenever his left leg goes out, his right arm goes up, and then vice versa. And so what that's doing is that it's just creating a counterbalance, and it's allowing him to be able to stay in line and stay in this going in the same direction without having to break stride or anything like that. And so using your opposite arm and opposite leg while running actually helps you create a counterbalance, like I said, and allows you to just move forward and focus more on your speed and direction than you would have to focus on staying in line. All right?
Okay.
Excellent. So here's our next one is just your typical baseball swing, but this hit actually resulted in a home run, so this is going to be a really good analysis of what has to take place. So tell me a little bit about what's going on right here.
So he's stepping towards the pitcher. His legs are going to end up wider than shoulder width. He's got a pretty big step going there, and then rotating that right leg around. His left leg, his knee is locked, and he started out with his arms bent, and obviously the bat like pulled back behind his head, and then he's using both of his arms, one to pull and the other one to like push that bat around into the ball. But his eyes are on the ball.
Good.
The whole time, which is really important. And then he has the good follow through on his swing too. So he kind of brings that elbow down.
Excellent.
And then follows through.
Very good. And notice also that his shoulders are very well in place and in line, and they're almost square with his hips. And so he's not necessarily doing too much of a twisting motion without having a lot of force behind it. And so if he uses just his upper body, then he wouldn't be able to get as strong of a hit off of that as he would if he used both his hips and his shoulders. So he's using a lot more power and momentum behind the swing than you would with just your arms. All right?
Okay.
And so here's our last one, and this is going to be a golf swing. And this is Jordan Spieth in honor of the Masters coming. This is just going to be a quick analysis of his swing. And so it's going to go in fast motion a couple times, and then it'll switch into slow motion.
Okay. I noticed that time that his hips are very square, and he keeps them in line with his shoulders when he's like, from the time he hits the ball until he follows through, they're in line. When he starts his swing, he brings the golf club up. His weight is on his right leg, and he's bending that right arm, but his left arm is straight. His eyes on the ball, and his body is very in line. His shoulders are in line with his feet. He's not like leaning forward, like leaning over. He's very balanced. And then you can see him shifting his weight right here when he brings the club